My family, hi, welcome to yet another one. You remember during those days, 2020, 2021, 2022, we had some people, all over social media, critics. But the sad thing that was happening is we even had preachers, servants of God in the church, were attacking Pastor Chris for his stance, especially concerning this thing that had to do with the C-19 pandemic.
The Christian Association of Nigeria (CAN) has condemned the recent viral video by the pastor of the Christ Embassy, Chris Oyakilome. The vice chairman of CAN's Northern State chapter, Reverend Joseph Hayab, said the video, which took a swipe at pastors for supporting the federal government's lockdown directive, is an attempt to ridicule the church.
When pastors start coming out to show some level of superior spirituality, then people like me begin to be afraid whether in the first place is God. If I begin to boast as if I am more godly than others, I'm more prayerful than others, but prayerful. Okay, very simple. Can we please, Lagos State government and others, bring out all the COVID-19 patients, or set aside a day and time for all the isolation center, and go and meet this super pastor who is more prayerful, take him around to go and pray for them. Or what is stopping him from doing that? So that he will prove to other pastors that he's more prayerful. No wonder those who do not understand our faith are making mockery of those miracle pastors and saying, you've been telling us that you will heal every sickness. Can you please go and do this? I want us to be careful what we say when it comes to public issues like this. Let's speak words that will edify, not things that will destroy and also bring questions to what we claim are from God.
And we even saw a lot of attempts, especially concerning some of his TV stations. They were even sanctioned. A lot of, even if you post a video on YouTube, if you posted a video on YouTube concerning what Pastor Chris would have said concerning any topic, whether it's C-19 related or it's not C-19 related, that video will be flagged, and they would not allow any video that Pastor Chris would be featured in, to gain a lot of traffic and the like, because they were afraid of everything that he had to say during this period. And it's like they were calling him a conspiracy theorist and a lot of stuff, a lot of attacks. And this was because of words like this.
Let me show you something. This is why we're praying, because we will spoil this calendar they have. December 2020, field hospitals set up in each county. January 2021, full lockdown. Look at the plans. I'm just reading the plans to you. They don't even care. They have it and they are planning on doing it. January 2021, full lockdown. All jobs stopped. All businesses closed. This is what they're planning for you in January. All jobs stopped. All businesses closed. Reform on all benefits. New infection, COVID-21, different strain, much more deadly than COVID-19 for March 21. By March 21, that's what they plan for March 21. By April 21, hospitals unable to cope. COVID-19 vaccination available. Hospitals unable to cope. July, national civil unrest takes off. Local governments start pulling out. COVID-21 vaccine developed. Right now they're saying this one can handle the new strain. Then the reason is, just in case they don't sell enough. Do you get it? Just in case there's not enough going out. Then they move to COVID-21. It is very deadly. So, new vaccine, but it's the same old vaccine, because the first one was really not for COVID either. So the second one is not going to be any different. Just put it in another bottle. Don't take those vaccines. There are governors in the United States and in some other places who are threatening people with jail terms. Let's say if you don't wear the mask or you don't take the vaccine, you're going to jail. Even in Australia. These are the manifestations of the Antichrist spirit. That's what this is about. So when you see these signs, you ought to say, no. How can somebody take control of your human body?
God doesn't even do that.
Put me on record. If you claim that what I said is not true, I challenge you to an open debate. So I've made it open. We can have it on a global platform.
And if we put aside some of the attacks he got, from governments and some of these, health bodies and the like, there were also some attacks from some servants of God, other reputable servants of God who are, fathers in some different countries. I can just use one example, respectfully. I can just use one example, the one that had to do with this situation in Ghana.
Vaccine is vaccine. If you think I don't have faith for taking it, you are joking. Taking the vaccine is also common sense and it's also wisdom. If you have the faith not to take it, don't take it. But don't go around telling everybody that don't take it. I haven't taken it, so you too don't take it. If you don't have what to preach, stop preaching. Stop making a whole sermon after vaccine.
But I believe this was the Archbishop's, thinking as at that time, based off of the information that he had. I actually believe that right now, his opinion is changed, concerning some of those things. But during that time, there were a lot of squabbles among preachers. A lot of preachers were going after Pastor Chris because they really didn't understand, why you were saying things like this. Well, recently, I apologize for being late. I believe this video was released maybe 2 days ago, the 30th of July or the 29th, where we had one of the main, you can say actors, in this whole pandemic thing, Dr. Anthony Fauci. What he was saying during the time of the, of the pandemic, how his lies were exposed. Let me just share some of the few contradictions before we get to him pleading the fifth over 100 times when he was asked questions pertaining to this pandemic issue.
To the topic today is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. I don't know how many times I can say it, Madam Chair. We did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Anyway, so let me just go on about NIH lifts funding pause on gain-of-function research that might be anticipated to create, transfer, or use enhanced potential pandemic pathogens. I don't think this is going to be foolproof. Things are going to slip through.
If it may have been a lab, may have been nature, we're supposed to look forward, then why did Dr. Fauci work so hard for just one of those theories?
I almost have to laugh at that, Neil. I mean, that's totally bizarre. First of all, I wasn't leaning totally strongly one way or the other. I've always kept an open mind.
As you know, there's a sort of urban legend that there's a biological warfare center in Wuhan and that the coronavirus escaped from that. Did you have any sense of where it probably came from?
I think ultimately we know that these things come from an animal reservoir. I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories.
I wasn't leaning totally strongly one way or the other. I've always kept an open mind. Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Should you be wearing 2 masks or 1 mask? I often myself wear 2 masks. Can we make a general recommendation that doesn't have scientific basis yet? No. Please wear a mask. The chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low. And that's the reason why in indoor settings now, I feel comfortable about not wearing a mask because I'm fully vaccinated. When you're in a congregate indoor setting, wear a mask. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. I went with Dr. Birx into the president and said, 15 days are not enough. We need to go 30 days. Obviously, there were people who had a problem with that because of the potential secondary effects. Nonetheless, at that time, the president went with the health recommendations, and we extended it another 30 days. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. So the worst possible thing you could do is vaccinate somebody to prevent infection and actually make them worse. This would not be the first time, if it happened, that a vaccine that looked good in initial safety actually made people worse. Well, the latter part of what you just said is untrue. You don't get worse results from vaccinating. She really has the flu. She definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. The optimal degree of protection when you get infection is to get vaccinated after infection. Because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself. The optimal degree of protection when you get infection is to get vaccinated after infection. She really has the flu. She definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. So if you're saying, are we out of the pandemic phase in this country? We are.
Is this country ready for another pandemic? And are we still in the one we have not, that we've been talking about?
Well, we certainly are still in it. The safety of these vaccines have been clearly established. The long-term effects that the people are apparently concerned about really have I'm sure there is a very, 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 very rare exception, but the long-term effects are really essentially non-existent.
Do we have any data about, vaccines and the back end of that, or the negative side of that? There's been a number of studies. New York Times just did one about menstruating cycles and how that is affected by vaccines.
Yeah, the menstrual thing is something that seems to be quite transient and temporary. That's the point. That's one of the points. We need to study it more. We need to study it. Because the other side that just keeps putting out misinformation and disinformation seems to be tireless in that effort.
Now let's move on to what the news has been saying about, this viral clip that has been making rounds where he was pleading the fifth, when asked about these things. And mind you, he was he was actually pardoned by Biden, I believe, just after he lost the elections. He then pardoned Fauci and, some of his close people so that they cannot be prosecuted because of these things, because a lot of people lost their lives believing some of these lies.
Dr. Fauci, did you personally receive any royalty payments connected to COVID-related intellectual property?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that NIH receives royalty payments from certain pharmaceutical companies, why would any American believe these financial ties did not influence decisions about which treatments were promoted or restricted?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you partner with Bill Gates on global health initiatives or vaccines?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Only 4 years ago, have a look at what Fauci said.
I am very happy to testify before any congressional oversight committee. I'm going to do what I need to do, and that is cooperate fully, because we have nothing to hide at all.
Yeah, he had nothing to hide at all then, but 111 times pleading the fifth, he must have something to hide now.
Yeah, isn't it ironic, from I am the science to I am the silence in just a couple of years? Fauci is now also, by the way, quite funny, if it, disturbing as well, a fan of constitutional rights, when, just 5 or 6 years ago, he was the one who was making up social distancing rules, happy to have 2, 3, 4-year-old children masked in nurseries all across America, in preschools, kindergartens. But that's the thing with the truth. They always say it's the sort of the age-old adage, which is, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? Normally, it's about 6 months. In this case, it's 6 years. But Anthony Fauci shouldn't be the only person up for the chopping block when it comes to being quizzed and interrogated on what happened during COVID. As you rightly said, economies destroyed, and they're still feeling the effects now, completely destroyed. Children's education, finance. People wonder why the world is now ravaged by inflation. He needs to be put forward in front of a committee to answer questions. Chris Whitty, the UK medical chief here in England, who was also pushing all this nonsense as well. The likes of Jacinda Ardern back in the day, who, if you remember, she took to the cameras and said, the only source of truth when it comes to COVID is from the government. Everybody else should be shunned. And this is what Fauci did. He ran a network, a cabal of paid-for cronies and corporations to silence dissenters through fear, with money, through dodgy partnerships, to ensure that only his way of going forward with COVID was acceptable. Anybody else, for example, the authors of the Great Barrington Declaration, which was a worldwide declaration talking about the possibility of herd immunity, everybody who signed that, and indeed Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, was exiled from the scientific community. Again, Fauci said, and what a joke it is now looking back at this, Fauci said, I am the science. He's not the science, he's a liar. He's a weasel. He's got a track record of doing some extraordinary, disgusting experiments.
When you mentioned the vaccination program there, Fauci's newly released private diaries also contain a mention of the adverse reaction he had to the vaccine after he took it on live television, but he'd never made that public before. I mean, do you think, I want to get through a few different things with you, so just quickly, do you think this is something he should have been upfront with the rest of the world?
Absolutely. You want to talk about transparency and truth? He got a pulmonary infection from his Moderna vaccine, which is one of the main side effects. Also potentially causes myocarditis, which Fauci wrote that he was suffering from. He didn't tell the American people anything. In fact, he went back on the airwaves and told people that if they didn't get injected with this so-called vaccine to protect Granny, then they were the shame of the United States. And by the way, just to add to that, Pfizer, again, Fauci never told you this, Pfizer, for example, never even tested for transmission. So governments all around the world knew this. Why was he pardoned if he did nothing wrong? And why did that pardon go all the way back to 2014, as you quite rightly said, which was the year that Fauci's National Institute of Health started gain-of-function research in China. So if you've got nothing to hide, and as you showed in that clip, he said he'd go in front of a congressional committee anytime. If you've got nothing to hide, you'd go there and you'd be honest and open up to answers. But do you know what? By pleading the fifth 111 times, by staying silent yesterday in Congress just down the road, he answered all the questions we had anyway. By staying silent, he's answered them all.
And this actually made me so happy, because Pastor Chris was attacked a lot, just for going against what is being said, in mainstream media. A lot of preachers attacked him, Christian bodies attacked him. But we are now seeing that he is the one who was actually very, very right, concerning this issue. And I'm glad that other servants of God are now joining him. They are now agreeing. I believe, when there were news of some of these pandemics that were being planned and the like, other servants of God were actually joining him, who used to attack him, which is actually good. But I just felt to share this video, because, we don't have a lot of people saying it, how Pastor Chris has been vindicated. He was right from the beginning, but he was attacked mercilessly by other servants of God. So I just felt you just needed to know that, you see, we discern from what the word says. We discern from the Holy Spirit. We don't discern from what mainstream media actually says. So just have to share that with you, in case of some of these things that they are planning, in case they plan it again, they run this thing again, you now know, what to believe and what not to believe. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless you.